welcome to lecture 60. This is the last lecture of this NPTEL course. In this lecture we are not going to discuss any particular technical subject, rather we are going to summarize the whole course and we will share few references for you. So, I start today's discussion in this lecture with the course objective from where we started this journey of these 60 lectures. So, we had basically objective to equip the working and the future city managers with a comprehensive knowledge on urban governance. So, urban governance was one of the key word in this course. Second was to develop skills required for management for urban development at both level, that is organizational level and personal level. So, this 1 and 2 objectives, the second objective in 2 levels consist 3 sections, 2 sections and number 1 objective consists 1 section, total 3 sections we divided the whole course. That was the rough distribution of the course structure you can see. So, this is under objective 1, this was our and this 2 was under objective 2. So, with this we started the course and we traveled through various modules, various lecture, case studies, etc. So, now let us see what are the component we committed in the beginning of the course. So, just have a look. I do not need to repeat this because you all know and we have been traveling through this journey. So, under the urban governance we had spent 4 weeks in this subject. This is the urban governance, and then in the management we had discussed 3 urban management, we discussed this 6 weeks, and also at the urban management at the individual level we just discussed last 2 weeks. So, I hope you have gone through all the lectures. Now, under this lecture in the week 1 I will summarize one by one for you. Now, the thing is that throughout the discussion it is a limited scope for half an hour for every lecture. So, it may not be possible to clarify each and everything. So, there might be possible doubts when you are going through the lectures. So, one option is that you participate in the online forum. We and my assistant will be available every day throughout the course for the discussions and the online forum. Any clarifications that is welcome, you just write to us. Plus, if there is possibility of the online or the real time video conferencing, that also we will explore. So, therefore, I will go through every week discussions very briefly as a summary, and for every week of the discussions what is the critical areas and what is the basic thrust areas which need to be remembered for the practice. Maybe for examination you need to go through each and every slides or each and every reading material, that is fine, but I am looking beyond that because ultimately you have to work in the practice. So, I will definitely touch upon all those points which is very critical and very significant in all those lectures. So, I start with lecture the week 1. The week 1 was dedicated on urban governance. We started with introductory lecture on the urbanization, then introductory lecture on the urban governance, basic key concepts we covered here, and then we discussed constitutional provisions under 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. What is the provision in Indian Constitution about the urban local governance, that is what was discussed. Then legislative provisions. After the constitutional provisions, every state government they have made their legislation, that is state legislation, state act, mostly named as State Municipal Act. So, under the legislative provision, what is the distinctive features which is transferred from the 74th Amendment Act, and what is the common feature which is common with the 74th Amendment Act, that is mentioned here. Then we discuss the organizational interface, because in the constitutional and legislative provisions we discussed the legal, basically legal and legislative provisions, but it is also important for an urban manager to know that at vertical level and horizontal level what are the organizations with whom you have to interact day to day basis. So, we discussed that at the vertical level like central government, state government and the district level and the urban local body level organizations, they are working, and at the parallel level or the horizontal level you will be as a unit, and the parallel level there are gram panchayats, there are district authorities, there are other municipal authorities, there are development authorities, there are parastatal authorities, bodies, sometimes they also work in collaboration with the urban local bodies. Now, in this week 1, the key question or critical area is some of the responsibilities under the 74th Amendment Act, it is yet to transfer to the urban local body level for some of the states. Not all the states and all the urban local bodies has achieved the status of doing each and every performance based on the 74th Amendment. So, that is one area or critical area if you work in such a municipality. So, your job will be to look into those matter, number 1. Number 2 is that the objective of the 74th Amendment Act and the legislative provisions is that to equip the urban local bodies so that they can perform and execute the urban services and urban infrastructure. But the thing is, as a organization, urban local bodies are not that much equipped. Most of the cases, small and medium towns, they have very humble setup of the organizational capacity, and as a result they fail to connect with the organizations vertically and horizontally. So, those are the critical areas in the urban local governance as an introduction which need to be thought for the further reference. We come to the second week, what we discussed. In the second week, we continued the discussion in little detailed manner. We first 2 lectures was on people and the community, then third lecture was on land, and fourth and fifth was on the environment, ecology and Nagar Panchayat. I tell about people and community. In urban governance and urban management, the subject is such that people is a very essential component of work. You cannot eliminate or isolate people and the public organizations out of your urban governance and urban management. So, every time it is very essential to work with people. For that reason, you have to understand the structure of the population, the basic socio-economic segregation, how they work, what are the dynamics at the local level, number 1, and apart from that there are design structure of the people's community. For example, under the various schemes there are neighborhood committees, neighborhood society, community based organization. So, what is the roles and responsibility of this organization and how they can help you for executing some particular function, or how you can collaborate and make a partnership with people and people organization, that will be an essential part in the future also. So, if you follow some of the best practices and good practices, you will find that the people is the center point around which the major urban development and urban governance has happened throughout the history in every geographical area. So, learning about the people and the community is the one of the best skill which you have, irrespective of any category of the technical persons. If you are engineer, you need to learn how to talk with people. If you are architect, you need to learn how to talk with the people and the community. If you are planner, yes, definitely you need to know. This is the essential skill you need to know. Then we discussed land as a basic resources. So, without land also urban management, urban development cannot be done. So, apart from people as a basic resource or the manpower, how land can be augmented at the urban local bodies level. So, number 1 is for the first stage is that to have a total status situation mapping of the land, how much land is available for the municipality, how much land is not available occupied, and then for the future how much land we can pool or how much land we can acquire, and what is the particular difference between various mode of land acquisition and land pooling, that also has been talked in this matter. Here the critical aspect is that land acquisition is no longer a very successful model in urban development. Most of the time it takes longer time because it has litigation and other public grievances. So, we have seen that land pooling and land readjustment or the models which is involving people, taking the people's consent, are best suitable for the urban development. So, as a urban manager, you have to know about the land pooling method where it is connected with people. So, those kind of element is required as a critical skill for your performance, for your betterment. The next important part is environment and ecology. The environment and ecology is another part which is very essential for the urban development. The reason being that for any urbanization it needs land, and urbanization go beyond the agricultural land, and it is our objective that to disturb the agricultural land as less as possible. But to do that we need to make a total mapping of the area of the city and the region, and then based on the existing environmental and ecological patterns we need to identify the urbanizable area, the developable area, and also we need to identify the zones or the area which is not suitable for development. Maybe those are ecologically very sensitive, maybe those are ecologically very essential component for our environment. So, those elements need to be identified and critically reserved, that it is not to be touched, it is to be preserved. So, those kind of segregation in the land cover to segregate the urbanizable area and non-urbanizable area is essential, otherwise we cannot achieve the sustainable development. And you know that in near future the clean, green and the sustainable urban environment is going to be very critical in all the cities. That is why knowledge about environment and ecology is essential. Then we discussed about Nagar Panchayat, the distinctive feature. Nagar Panchayats are basically smaller urban local bodies who have not received the status of the municipality yet, but still it is a urban local bodies under the act. The distinctive feature of Nagar Panchayat is that since it is very small, it does not have the capacity to deliver the urban service. So, they need to be equipped either by more manpower or by different set of urban services benchmark which they can perform. So, those kind of issues are related with Nagar Panchayat. Second issue with the Nagar Panchayat is that how a smaller urban area which is lying under the Nagar Panchayat will grow and sometimes become a municipality. That roadmap is also not much clear. And another point is very important, that in Nagar Panchayat there are substantial area under the rural habitation and rural economy. So, how Nagar Panchayat can also be enabled to get the benefit of the rural schemes by the government of India, that is another key issue in the development of the Nagar Panchayat. So, having said that, these are the major key issues related to people, land, environment, ecology and the Nagar Panchayats. So, Nagar Panchayat is a unique example of a mixture between the urban and the rural, because it is urbanizing in terms of the character. In the third week we discussed with details about the organization and development, municipality as a whole, as an organization, what are the structure of the municipality, how it can be developed, what are the hierarchical pattern, what are the power and responsibility of the key personnels. Then we discussed the essential component of the transparency and accountability as essential attribute of a organization. After that we discussed capacity building 1 and 2. In 2 sections we discussed the capacity building. The reason for capacity building is that if we increase the roles and responsibility of municipalities, we need to develop their capacity as well. Capacity in terms of their manpower, capacity in terms of their equipments, infrastructure, etc., so that they can perform well. They can perform which is compliant with the expectation and demand by the central government or by the people. So, that is the reason we discussed in 2 modules. Here we discussed that government of India and state government, they have given time to time all the funds for the capacity building. So, it is your duty to develop the capacity of your team or your organization. And here 2-3 things I mentioned, like knowledge, skill and attitude for a individual level capacity. So, it is possible at the later age also to improve knowledge, skill and also in sometimes attitude. So, it is possible by improving their performance and outlook towards the urban service delivery. Then we discuss systems and process improvement. Systems and processes are interlinked. For any job which is done from 0-1 to the delivery, it has several sub process or stages. So, that stages and the combination of stages in a simple flow chart, if it is represented, that is called a process of the particular job, and every process if we can minimize the process in terms of timing, in terms of the number of stages, maybe that process could be improved and the time requirement could be improved, service delivery can be better. And systems is the tools and techniques which makes the process functioning. For example, in a municipality, a person is sitting in the front office and doing the registration of birth and death certificate. If he does it using manual system, maybe it is taking long time, but if he does through a computerized system, maybe it is less time. So, here the systems from manual to the online system or the computerized system is the systemic change, and the process is something which is required several stages and several sequences to be done to make a job particularly fulfilled. Now, systems and process, why this is important? This is important because to deliver the urban services within given period of time and with the given and the expected quality benchmark. So, that is why systems and process improvement is important. If you can improve the capacity of the local bodies by giving technical manpower, but you do not improve the systems, you will not get the desired result. So, it is important to improve capacity and the systems process both. So, in this week 3 the critical areas are to follow up the progress of the organization as a whole, as a municipality as an organization, that how it is developing time to time in terms of the transparency and accountability, capacity building, systems and process. We move forward to week 4. In the week 4 we discussed thoroughly with the urban reform, visioning, resolving conflicts and leadership. Now, here the key word is the reform. Reform is something which is related to change. When we do change in our own life, it is the change and we get the better result from the change. Similarly, for the organization, a systematic change for the organization brings a positive result and the better result for the citizens. Those are called urban reforms. The most of the reforms which discussed in this lecture, like making city development plan, making accounting reform, making citizens charter, all the reforms are aimed to bring desired result, better result for the citizen. Visioning for the city is particular subject which is required to be discussed among all the stakeholders, including the political representative, because unless we have a vision, dream or aim for the city for a distance time, it is not possible to make a proper planning. So, visioning is important. We need to see the future and we need to try to see the future for the city and we need to create that vision. Resolving conflicts and change management is also important to bring a change through the reforms in municipalities. Now, what are the conflict resolution techniques and how the conflicts can be identified, avoided or to be resolved? Those are discussed here. If you are working in a local level or with the community within your organization and you face conflicts, definitely you will be benefited. And after all, the leadership and team building matters a lot, because when in urban governance it is all about to lead an organization, to lead a work program. So, municipal councillor or municipal chairperson or municipal corporation mayor, they are the leader and they are required to take the whole team together and to take them in some better result or better area. It is possible that if the leader takes the team and develop their team and work with the team. So, leadership and team building essential. Now, we have a structured leadership format in the urban local bodies. We have a mayor in council or chairman in council and there are councillors in the municipality. So, this is a structured leadership, but we are talking here leadership which is in the true sense that a structure, a leader, a person can take the leadership beyond the structural format of the leadership and really can take the whole team into new areas. Okay. Now, in the week 5 we discussed essential concept of the planning and the development. From the week 5 we started discussion on the urban management. So, in this week 5 we discussed various aspects of regional and urban planning, because as an urban management manager you need to know the various aspects of the urban planning. So, we started regional and metropolitan planning. We told you that regional planning and metropolitan planning is done in coordination with the urban planning done at the city level, and for the bigger cities which are having a larger urban concentration with all agglomeration, they need metropolitan planning, whereas the districts or where there are multiple urban and rural areas where they need the regional and the district planning. So, those kind of planning is done at the macro level, and then we discussed urban planning. Urban planning is done at the city level, and the various stages of the urban planning we discussed, and based on the urban planning the basic stages are making a situation assessment of the city, making a vision, making the projection, then making scenarios and making the recommendation and the strategy, and those strategy will include the urban infrastructure and the services. We discussed in details that there are two types of infrastructure. One is physical infrastructure, second is social infrastructure, and we discussed in key points that what are the critical areas of the basic infrastructure like the road sewerage, sanitation system, water supply, and also social infrastructure like health, education, etc., etc. So, here the key component is that one key component is that whether the municipalities have the capacity to make the urban planning or not. By now most of the bigger municipalities or the corporation, they have some capacity to make the urban planning, but the real question is that all the municipalities, small and medium term, should have the capacity to make their own plans. The plan should not be imbibed, should not be imposed by some other agency. Plan should be evolved through the process from the people who are working in the municipality. So, that is the crux of the matter. Second is then that in urban infrastructure and services, we need to think about the urban infrastructure which is sort of permanent. If you invest 1 rupee in municipality for any infrastructure, you have to think for its longevity. It is not that you are investing 1 rupee and it will just last for 1 year or 2 years and then again you repair and again you do. So, please make the infrastructure, at least some of the infrastructure which is durable enough, which can give a better life situation for at least 5 year 10 years period. So, that is the crux of the situation, and better infrastructure, better services always gives a better life quality of the citizens. So, having said that, we go forward with the week 6. In the week 6, the whole week was devoted with the discussion of the urban finance and accounts. We discussed various aspects of the urban finance and the methods of the revenue generations, basic concepts of the accounts, accounting reform, then how we can augment revenues, various sources. Then we discussed value capture financing. This is not discussed earlier in a bigger way. We discussed various options for value capture financing. The key objective of value capture financing, or VCF in short, is that if you create a large infrastructure, that infrastructure makes some added value in surrounding areas. How you can capture that added value in the surrounding areas, that is the crux of the problem, and you can try to do that. Then PPP in the urban governance. PPP has been tested in various urban governance in last 10 to 20 years. So, PPP is one of the mode where you can really explore some unexplored areas of financing where public exchequer or you do not have your own money. So, PPP can be explored, but the critical areas in this whole area is that, for example, municipal accounts, if you have you are having the accounting reform, it is important to have your own setup of the people, qualified people, those who can understand and run the system of the new accounting system. If you are going for PPP, the critical factor in the PPP is the right kind of negotiations. We had a negotiation class lecture in the later also, so I will come later. So, this was the crux of the week 6. So, we go to the week 7. In the week 7, we started discussion in little detail some of the elements, for example, the housing, how we can deal the housing and the urban poverty, real estate regulation and the development, urban land management, urban risk and disaster management. Even though we discussed the land aspect earlier, here we mentioned land management in terms of the critical areas and how it can be linked with the housing and the urban development and the urban risk and disaster management. Here the critical areas, for example, real estate regulation and development is that new law is there in 2016 law, but how to make applicable that law in your city and how to follow up with that law. That is the most critical areas you need to think. For housing and urban property, it is important to make a housing strategy for the whole city. What I have seen in the last few decades, that the people, the municipal authorities, they are doing their housing based on the supply. So, it should not be supply, it should not be a supply driven strategy. For example, government of India is giving X amount of money, so they are just taking the X amount of money and doing that. Rather, you can make a demand assessment, you can make a prioritization, you can make a assessment of the all typologies of the housing and make a strategy, and then you connect those demand with the possible supply. If you do not have the conventional supply, go for PPP, go for privatization, it is possible, so that you can serve each and every group. Otherwise, in absence of that strategy and its follow up, what is happening, that unscrupulous developers are coming up and they are doing all the not so good housing projects in the municipalities, and as a whole the total built environment is getting affected. So, please be aware and please do the needful for that. So, the week 7 was dedicated on the some special aspect like housing, real estate, land and urban risk and disaster management. In urban risk and disaster management, the key word for this was to prevention. So, it is better to prevent that to take action after the disaster. So, here that was the message you need to follow. We go forward with the week 8. In the week 8, we had a detailed discussion of the urban environment. We discussed the various law and the mandates, and what are the mandates for the urban development, what are the role for the urban manager. Then we discussed traffic and transportation management in 2 modules, 1 and 2, in details what could be the traffic planning systems, what could be the traffic management system, what are the traffic management systems which have shown better result in the urban local bodies. Those type of things we have discussed. And then fourth is the designing of the urban public spaces. This is one area which is almost neglected area in our urban local bodies. The basic one of the reason is that in the urban local bodies most of the works are being done based on the supply driven or based on the supply or the availability of the finance. You get money for the road, you construct the road, you get money for the water supply, construct the water supply distribution pipeline. But for the urban public space there is no answer, because people need to interact with each other, they need some space where they can meet with each other and they can enjoy during their leisure time. So, those kind of spaces need to be created at the urban areas. So, that we discussed. So, in week 8 it was dedicated on the urban environment, traffic and the urban public space. So, this was some discussion on thematic areas. Week 9 was very interesting and very special, because week 9 we discussed all the centrally sponsored programs and schemes, starting with Amrut, Smart City Mission, Swachh Bharat Mission, Hriday Mission which is based on heritage, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana and National Urban Livelihood Mission. I am not going into details of this mission because we have already discussed, but the crux of this discussion was that the intention and the program for all this mission was really great, but the real issue at the ground is the implementation. So, for the implementation, how much we are equipped to implement and for the progress of the work, that is very important. Amrut mission is dedicated for the urban infrastructure, Smart City mission is dedicated to make some of these cities as a smart in terms of their some of the basic services more functional using IT application. Swachh Bharat mission, you know all that Swachh Bharat mission is a great is a bigger campaign. Hriday mission was aimed to heritage development, and Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana and NULM. Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana is, you know, that is urban housing problem which was aimed by this scheme, and National Urban Livelihood Mission aims to create new livelihood option and employment options. So, these are whole gamut of the centrally sponsored programs. Another key area is that all the centrally sponsored programs and schemes are designed in such a way that it requires little bit of contextualization in terms of the geography, in terms of the variations in all the states. So, if it is possible to make those kind of variations in the design, in the projectization, everything, that will be beneficial for you, so that you can apply here for the centrally sponsored scheme. Week 10 was dedicated to the project management. We discussed the fundamental of the project planning and the management, how to formulate a project from starting to end, then what is the project monitoring skills which is required for a successful completion of the project, then essential of the engineering design as a manager. Even if you are not engineer, what are the basic things you should look forward or you should check for a particular project, and what are the skills required for managing large project where significant capital investment, time investment is there. So, week 10 was focused or dedicated for the implementation part of the project in the urban management. So, here the basic question, if you are really involved in a bigger project implementation and management, so I will suggest that based on that, if you got some interest, you definitely you should get some more knowledge from some dedicated course on the project management, because this is one area we need dedicated manpower, so that they can really execute the project within the time, where the most of the urban local bodies and development authorities they lack. The one reason is that we do not have that much of dedicated manpower. The manpower required for the project management is maybe he is involved in some other job. So, it is required for the leaders also to look into the matter. So, till week 10 we discussed the matters of the urban management at the organization level. Then we shifted to the matters which is possible to develop at the individual level. For example, the management of the city image, how we can enhance the city image, what are the parameters for the city image, and at the individual level as a people's representative, as a urban manager, what you can do to improve the city image. Second, we discussed essential competencies of a city manager. As a successful city manager, what are the skill set required? For example, some of the competencies we discussed: number 1, problem solving and decision making, then effective negotiations, communication skills. Now, since this is not a particular dedicated course on this soft skill development, still I mentioned few of the critical areas, so that at least you can develop and you are sensitized to some of the skills of the negotiation, communication and the decision making, because these are very essential fundamental pillars of the urban manager, and without that you cannot perform at your local level. So, in this week 11 the main objective was to develop the key skill set for the urban manager. In the week 12 we discussed time management and stress management briefly, because I felt that this is also a very important part of the city manager, because nowadays city managers are so stressed off with so many works and the responsibilities, they need to know the essentials of the time management and the stress management. So, that is why we included this, so that at the individual level you get some benefit which you can transfer for the your organization at the city. After that, in last 2 lectures we discussed best practices in the urban management and reflective learning and the excellence. We told that some of the practices could be best because it aims the mandates and the expectation of the people, etc., and it can be time tested, it can be best in terms of time, and reflective learning is something which we learn from the reflection of the others better and the good practices, and this reflective learning is the method which can teach us a lifelong teaching, or the continuous learning can happen. And after that, today we are having the last lecture, which is the course summary. Now, I hope that you got some information, some ideas from the section 1, which is urban governance, section 2 from the urban management at the organization level, and section 3 urban management skills for the as a individual level. So, based on that I share few of the references, just have a look. So, first reference is related to all the policy of government of India and the states. Some books also I have mentioned, and the URDPFI volume 1 and 2, and then few more books, and the best practices compilation on the urban governance by National Institute of Urban Affairs. Some of the best practices I discussed here from that compilation, more I will share with you, and few more reading references as a further references I will share through the online platform. So, having said that, I talk about the feedback. Since this is the end of the course, I would like to expect course feedback on the course structure, content and the delivery, and how we are conducting the course from all of you. I know that some of you are pursuing your master degree course, some of you are pursuing the prerequisite for the PhD course, some of you are faculty, some of you are from the diverse background like engineering, sociology or the other background. So, please give us feedback. I will be happy to have the feedback. And second, since it is the subject, it is very vast subject, we try to compile the subject within 60 lectures. It will be fantastic if you also share your experience through our online platform, so that each of us we are benefited from your experiences. That will be very nice. We will try to integrate that through the assignments or the discussion, but it is a open request to all of you, so that you can give us feedback and your experience is shared with us. With this, I would like to thank all of you for attending the course. The journey has been very wonderful for me and the teaching assistant Mr. Nalin Kumar and the whole NPTEL team who is working at the IIT Roorkee. So, I hope that you have enjoyed all the course, and we will be looking forward from the feedback and the successful completion of the course. So, thank you very much for your participation.